Well, welcome everybody to another episode of Advocacy at Work. I am your host, Tim McDonald, and today I am honored to be joined by Dr. Carlos Garcia. How you doing, Dr. Carlos?
Good, Tim. Thank you so much for all the work you do, and thank you for having me on today.
No, I'm really thrilled. And one of our past guests, Vincent, has connected us. So I just love how this works out when we have the opportunity to meet new people through connections that we make on the podcast. So great to have you here. But before we get too far into this, what I'd love to hear from you, because I know that, most people might look at your site and everything and think, why is Dr. Carlos on? But we talked earlier and I know your story a little bit. And so why don't you just explain to people like how you got into what you're doing now and why that was?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Tim. So I'm a clinical psychologist. I've been doing that for just over 10 years. I'm a former Marine Corps. I'm a Marine Corps veteran, also a former firefighter and paramedic. And the reason actually that I became a psychologist was it was after years of having navigated my own mental health struggles with anxiety and depression and PTSD, and having really had therapy be such a powerful shifter and create such positive impact in my life. I decided that that's what I wanted to sort of spend the rest of my life doing was helping other people the way that some therapists helped me.
Yeah, no, and I just love that. But I'm kind of curious, just because I know for men especially, it's so difficult when you're especially with mental health issues. When you were going through that, what was kind of the genesis of what brought you to therapy? Because I know it's so easy for most men to just kind of close up and not acknowledge to anybody that they're having issues.
Yeah, absolutely, Tim. I mean, and you nailed it. That was definitely the case for me. I mean, honestly, what I say to people was like my pain and suffering had gotten to be too much. I just couldn't bear the suffering anymore. A statistic that I read many years ago, I don't know, it's still probably somewhere in the ballpark, but from the time that a man experiences their first mental health symptom and the time they seek out help, it's about 7 years.
Wow.
Like if you sprained an ankle, you wouldn't wait, 7 hours to go see a doctor, right? Much less, 7 years for something like mental health. But to answer your question, I tried to deal with it on my own. I probably coped in some ways that were less than healthy with alcohol and other things. And the struggle just got to be too tough and too hard to where eventually I surrendered into it. And I was like, I need help, right? Like if I don't get help, I'm not going to stay on this earth,
Mm. Yeah, no, I think that's very powerful. And hopefully somebody listening that might be experiencing something like this will hear this and not wait those 7 years to get help and get it before they reach their breaking point like you got to. But before we jump in too much further, just because I do talk about advocacy here, I always like to kind of frame it just to get your definition of what an advocate is and what advocacy is.
Yeah. For me, advocacy, Tim, I think it's about taking what gifts we've been given and what things we have learned in life and giving that over to others through service, right? Whether it's through the work that we do, whether it's through the way we parent, whether it's through being there as a friend, right? Like taking those gifts and serving humanity with them.
I love that answer. Another thing I love about this show is I have not gotten the same answer twice.
That's so powerful, right? How amazing that is.
So, and I love that you've kind of taken this, what could be tragic, issues with the mental health and the PTSD and turned it into like your calling in life. What point from your actual like therapy to actually deciding you wanted to become a therapist, what was kind of that point and what was the process in you getting to where you're at today?
Yeah. Great question. I have to imagine I'm not alone in this. And I've talked to enough people who have gone through really challenging life situations. But I think that there's a point for all of us where when we've, let's say, recovered from our pain, right? We've sort of overcome the massive struggle that was in our life. It's almost like something in us says, there has to be a reason for this. There has to be a reason why I went through this. There has to be some way that I can do something with this, right? Like serve again humanity in some way, or serve even one other person. Like I remember before going to grad school, I said, if I just help one other person heal, then it will have been worth me going through, 6 years of graduate school and all of that stuff. But yeah, I think it's just kind of this little thing on the inside that says this, I can use this pain to serve others. And what does that need to look like for me in my life? And I think that was the major prompter for me to decide to become a therapist. I think there's another part in there in which I feel so absolutely blessed to have had just some really beautiful, counselors and psychologists along the way that showed me compassion, that showed me patience, that showed me love, that really helped me navigate those dark places in myself. And I wanted to pull from that. There was like a way that inspired me. And you could see it, right? As soon as I had my first client in front of me and I was on the other side of that couch, that I was embodying these people that had come before me and able to give the gift that they gave me.
Wow. I got to ask you, just because I kind of feel this way personally, that when I got into my advocacy and started trying to help others too, that it was almost like a form of therapy for myself as well as trying to help others. Did you feel that way?
Oh, profoundly. And I would say that that's still happening, right? Yeah. My goodness, Tim, like I am so honored that as my work, I get to sit with people every day and get access to like that deeper, vulnerable, like those parts of us that we don't often share with other people. And the reason that I'm so humbled by that is because while we may struggle with pain and doubt and fear or the experiences we've had in life, also there lives like the beauty, the resilience of the human spirit, like so much of each individual, like the fingerprint that is each individual. And I get to see that every day. And like how moving, right? Like how moving that people even get to like trust me with that kind of work, right? And so, yeah, it feels therapeutic because then I get to be like, I get to pull from a lot of my examples. And one way that I can put this for you concretely is a client that'll come and see me because they're deeply struggling with depression. And they'll say to me, Dr. Garcia, my depression is like X, Y, and Z. And I will sit there and I'll be like, oh yeah, and it feels like this and like this and like this. And you often find yourself thinking this, that, and the other. And you see that there's this moment where you're like, oh, like you didn't learn this stuff in school. Like you're talking from a place of real life experience. And there's a connection in that moment where some of the walls fall away, the trust deepens. And I don't think this work can happen without a deep sort of sense of trust. And so, yeah, it's so therapeutic, Tim, so therapeutic.
I love what you just talked about there, because those thoughts were going through my head as soon as you brought up like where you were going with this. And I'm like, man, it's like, I can't tell you how many times, like, I used to be in marketing and I'm like, you see people market something and you're like, they don't know what they're talking about because they haven't done it. They just learned about it, read about it, whatever, and they're talking about it now. Whereas like, the people who have been through it and are talking about it because you can make that, like you just said, you make that connection with them right away. Absolutely. And that's so powerful to do. And I love the fact that you just brought that up, because I think it's so true. And I think that's true with what differentiates like advocates from just authority figure, like somebody that puts themselves out there as authority on
you can feel the difference, right?
Yeah, you feel it. Yeah, I love that. might steal that.
Yeah, please have it. It's yours. Yeah.
So as we look at the work, and I know you do this for a living now, where a lot of advocates that I interview just are doing this kind of as their passion on the side. They might get a little bit of compensation here and there, but you actually do this for a living. But I'm kind of curious, like, how do you measure the impact? And I know you kind of alluded to some of the soft impact that I mean, it's no doubt, it's important, but like, how do you actually measure the impact that your work is having?
Yeah, it's funny, Tim. I was just having this conversation with someone the other day, that like, what a beautiful gift for every single one of us human beings if we got to see the actual ripples, the impact, right, that we make in people's lives. Like if we had access to all of that. I am, in some ways, if I work with a client long enough, get to see that. I get to see that in the way that they change emotionally. I get to see that in the way that their mindset shifts. I get to see that in the way that their relationships shift. And I'll use one example of a client that's been working with me for, I don't know, probably 4 years now. And we've worked on, different aspects of his life experience and all of this. But now he's at a better place, right? And he's feeling healthy, and he was at a pretty dark place when he came in. But I've gotten the opportunity to see how his relationship with his kids has changed, and now with his grandkids. And here in the last couple of years, he became part of a church, and he started to run a men's group. And he tells me about the impact he's having on these men because of the things that we talked about. And like, what a blessing that I get to go home at the end of the day and see, like, I get the evidence of that, right? So that's one of the ways. One of the other ways that I've noticed it, Tim, is probably like 7, 8 years ago, I had this thought that what was happening in the therapy room, the healing, was such a beautiful process. Like to watch someone go from their pain and their struggle to joy and happiness. And I was like, why do we hide this behind closed doors? Why do we hide this process behind shame? And what that prompted me to do was to start getting out and like speaking on mental health, sharing my story. One of the things that came across for me after I was starting to get much better from, the things I was struggling with, was I decided I wanted to be a walking permission slip for people to take off their mask, right? The mask that we hide behind our struggle and our shame. And so I started to go out and give talks and share about mental health and all of these things. And so I've now gotten to see that ripple through, the ways that people come up after me and say, Dr. Carlos, like, you have no idea, I needed to hear that today, or, this is going to help me go help somebody in my life. Or the, private messages that I get, clients that send me a card, clients that I saw 6, 7 years ago that will tell me, like, you have no idea what impact you had. Like, those things, those are the things that remind me every day why I get up, why I keep doing this, and why there's still so much more work to do. So, why I'm here, right? Also sharing my story.
I love it. And, I originally developed this question when I was interviewing organizations and was thinking I was going to get some dollars and, that. And so far I have not gotten anything that mentioned dollars.
Right. Yeah. I'm sure, that there's a part of me, that's grown up in this American culture of business and all of that, gets caught up in that as well. And, it's interesting, when I get too caught up in it, that's when one of those messages, right? That's when one of those letters comes to my house. That's when that reminds me, like, this isn't about the money. This is about like real, true human change that we're creating. And like, just how amazing, right? That we get to be able to do that work too.
No, it's absolutely incredible. So, if you don't mind, I just have these couple of questions that I just call my lightning round, or they're nothing to do with what we just talked about, just to get to know you a little bit better. So the first one's really simple. What's your favorite color?
Favorite color is black. That's an easy one.
All right. And what is your favorite band or musician?
Oh, that's a tough one. I've had so many over the years, but you know what? I'm going to say Pearl Jam, just because like that was, the teen years. That was my first concert, and they've aged well, sort of like the Rolling Stones and some of these other groups that we know. So I'm going to go with that one.
Sounds good. And what is a place you've always wanted to visit but haven't yet?
Oh, that's a good one. My answer, if you would have caught me about 3 weeks ago, would have been India, but I actually got to travel there and just came back.
Nice.
So the next place on my list um, is Thailand. I'd love to visit Thailand. I've heard there's a lot of beautiful temples. I practice Buddhism, and so I think that there would be a lot of beautiful connection there as well.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. I have a friend who lives over in that part of the world, and now he's back in LA with his wife, but he met his wife in Cambodia, and now he's back over here, but they've lived all over, Asia. And it was like, he kept telling me, Tim, you got to come here. You got to come here.
I've heard it's gorgeous. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And finally, what is one thing that most people do not know about you?
That most people do not know about me. A lot of people don't know that I am married to a marriage and family therapist. And that makes for some really wild conversations at home, a psychologist and a marriage and family therapist, Tim. And we have a little boy who's 4 years old. And so it's really fascinating to see, I say this, either this child is going to grow up to be the most psychologically and emotionally healthy child, or we have developed probably new ways of somehow messing him up. So maybe he'll be in his therapist's office at 13. Like, you have no idea what it's like to live with these two. So, but yeah, that's something a lot of people don't know about me.
That's great. We'll hope for the former instead of the latter.
Right, absolutely.
Before we wrap up, I just really love to understand, because I know most of us are all constrained with, resources, or, whether that be our time, our financial, whatever. But if resources were no object for you, what would you like to see happen?
Yeah, Tim, I would, the vision would be to bring healing across the globe, across the world, to do work. I talk about this idea that, like, the more we heal ourselves, the more we become a vehicle for others to heal themselves, right? Through the ways that they see themselves in us. And so it would be more of these conversations. It would be, having facilities where we can come and do yoga and therapy and really lean into all of these resources and modalities for becoming the best versions of ourselves. And again, sending out those ripples through each and every conversation, through each and every moment, so that we can just build a world that's more grounded in love and compassion and understanding. That would be the vision.
I love it.
Yeah.
And I know you've mentioned ripples twice, and I don't know if it's going to show up, but I got a ripple on my arm.
That's beautiful, man.
So
I love it.
You can tell that we're already connected.
I love it. So that's awesome. Thank you for showing me that.
Yeah. But before we sign off, just explain, if you're open to it, like, what your firm is, how people can
Yeah.
That you do.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I probably gave you a fraction of who I am and what I do. Another part of me does corporate talks, and another part of me coaches, and I also do a podcast. So probably the place where you can get the most versions of me, if you will, would be on Instagram at Dr. Carlos A. Garcia. That's where I post most of my content. And then I'd like to share my podcast. It's called the Human Experience Podcast. And it's a podcast I do with a dear friend. And it's all about, right, like the ups and downs of life. And, we've done probably about 20 episodes, but we've gotten a lot of great feedback that it feels like you're coming and sitting with a warm cup of coffee or hot chocolate and just chatting with a friend. So that's the Human Experience Podcast. That's probably the place that people can find me.
Well, I love it. And we'll be sure to link both of those when I get this posted in a few weeks. So, Dr. Carlos Garcia, thank you so much for joining us today on Advocacy at Work. And if you're listening, please subscribe. It's on Substack. You can get it on YouTube too, wherever you listen. But please visit advocacyatwork.com. Thank you so much for tuning in again, and we'll see you next week.